It's a new year and a new chance for you to make a fresh start with your compliance. We're going to be bringing you a daily tip, strategy, or idea that you can use to improve your program. Here's your host, Tom Bach, the compliance evangelist.
Welcome to 2024. As always, in the month of January, I do a 31-day series entitled 31 Days to a More Effective Compliance Program. In the month of January 2024, we'll be doing that, and today is day one. This year, I'm going to open with some of the key speeches from the Department of Justice in 2023 and how those speeches really portend what DOJ enforcement will look like, and equally importantly, what you as a compliance professional will need to do to respond to these new DOJ initiatives. While there were, of course, multiple FCPA enforcement actions from 2023, I really think these speeches from the Department of Justice portend where the DOJ is going with enforcement and give us greater insight to what their expectations were going to be. So we're going to start this month by looking at these key speeches and other initiatives from the Department of Justice, and then we'll move into how you can respond for your compliance program. I know you'll enjoy this month of 31 Days to a More Effective Compliance Program, and I know you'll find it informative. Day 3, the 2023 Evaluation of Corporate Compliance Programs on Messaging Apps, Internal Controls, and Adequate Compensation. There was a significant addition to the language around messaging apps in the 2023 ECCP. The section opened by noting messaging apps have become ubiquitous in many markets and offer important platforms for companies to achieve growth and facilitate communications. For any company under or in an FCPA investigation, the DOJ will evaluate its policies and mechanisms for identifying, reporting, investigating, and remediating potential misconduct and violations of law, governing the use of personal devices, communications platforms, and messaging apps, including ephemeral messaging applications. Off-the-shelf policies will not be sufficient, as the company's management of messaging apps should be tailored to the corporation's risk profile and specific business needs. Not surprisingly, the DOJ is concerned about storage, access, and even backups, requiring that business-related electronic communications and data are accessible and amenable to preservation by the company. Training and communication of these policies and procedures will be evaluated, and whether the corporation has enforced the policies and procedures on a regular and consistent basis in practice. Internal controls. Under Section 2, which is entitled, "Is the corporation's compliance program adequately resourced and empowered to function effectively?" there is the new following language. In this regard, prosecutors should evaluate a corporation's method for assessing and addressing applicable risks and designing appropriate controls to manage those risks. This simple sentence packs quite a punch, as it requires both appropriate internal controls and then monitoring of those controls to see if they are managing risks identified in the risk assessment. Many of these concepts are fleshed out in the ECCP, but it is clear this is a minimum expectation of the DOJ. Next up, adequate compensation and salary bonus review for compliance. Under Section 3 of the ECCP, in a part entitled, "Does your compliance program work in practice?" is the following new language. Independence and empowerment. Is compensation for employees who are responsible for investigating and adjudicating misconduct structured in a way that ensures the compliance team is empowered to enforce policies and ethical values of the company? Who determines the compensation, including bonuses, as well as the discipline and promotion of compliance personnel or others within the organization that have a role in the disciplinary process generally? This is a significant new addition to the ECCP. It forces a company to adequately compensate those employees who investigate and pass judgment on misconduct. But is more than simply adequate compensation, as it also requires a company not to retaliate via low salaries or limited raises or other compensation for doing their job as compliance officers. In other words, if the CEO is being investigated by compliance, that same CEO should not be setting or reviewing the salary of the CCO or doing the investigation. This mandates that the DOJ will review the entire corporate organization on these issues. So, what are today's 3 key takeaways? Well, if it's not clear that one important compliance issue in 2024, let me state it as succinctly as I can. Communications compliance will be a key issue for the compliance professional. This has been long in coming. It started in 2021, increased in 2022 and 2023, and now the ECCP has specifically laid it out. I would not be surprised to start seeing this in FCPA enforcement action. Number 2, you must have both appropriate internal controls, but more importantly, you must ensure they're functioning. That means you have to monitor them. And number 3 is adequate compensation. In addition to adequate resources, a compliance function must be shown to adequately pay, promote, and protect those involved in compliance-related investigations going forward. I hope you'll join us tomorrow where we look at the March 2023 Deputy Attorney General Lisa Monaco's speech and mine it for compliance data. For listening to this episode of 31 Days to a More Effective Compliance Program. 31 Days to a More Effective Compliance Program is a part of the Compliance Podcast Network.